$634 million. That's the reported price tag on the submarine Israel's Navy just took delivery of, and if you ask people who track this stuff for a living, the number is almost beside the point. What matters is where the boat was built and what it's meant to hold in check. The submarine was built in Germany. It joins a fleet that military analysts have described for decades as one of the quietest and most consequential pieces of Israel's entire defense posture. Not the fighter jets, not the missile defense batteries that make headlines every time there's an exchange of fire. The submarines. This video walks through what's publicly confirmed about this delivery, what's still estimated or flat out unconfirmed, and why defense analysts keep circling back to the same argument. That a small fleet of diesel-electric boats built thousands of kilometers away in a German shipyard might be doing more to shape the standoff between Israel and Iran than almost anything else in the region. By the end, you'll know three things. First, what's actually known about this new submarine's cost and construction kept separate from speculation. Second, why Israel has leaned on a foreign country, specifically Germany, to build its most sensitive naval assets for more than 30 years. Third, the military logic behind why a submarine keeps getting named as central to deterring Iran. I spent time going through years of defense reporting on this program before writing this, and one thing kept jumping out. Almost none of the public reporting on Israel's submarines is actually about the submarines. It's about what they're assumed to be able to do, without anyone officially confirming it. Hold on to that tension. It runs through this whole story. Let's start with what's actually confirmed. Israel has received a new submarine, built in Germany, at a reported cost of $634 million. Defense reporting describes the delivery as a significant boost to Israel's deterrence posture toward Iran. It adds to an existing Israeli submarine fleet that multiple outlets, over multiple years, have described as a strategic deterrent tool in the region. That's the confirmed core of the story. A delivery, a reported cost, a stated purpose, deterrence aimed at Iran. Everything else, including the boat's exact capabilities, its precise armament, what it can or can't carry, sits in a different category, and we'll keep that category clearly labeled as unconfirmed or as analyst assessment, not fact. Here's the surprising part. It's not the number. $634 million is a lot of money, but submarines are expensive everywhere. What's surprising is how little official confirmation usually comes with these deliveries, and how much of the strategic weight rests on things that are reported, assumed, and analyzed rather than stated outright by any government. That gap between what's delivered and what's confirmed isn't an accident. It's policy. To understand why, we need context on two things: how Germany ended up building Israel's submarines, and what a modern diesel-electric submarine actually does that other weapons can't. Start with Germany. This is general background, well documented over decades, not specific to this one delivery. Israel's submarine fleet has been built in Germany since the early 1990s, mainly through what's now ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems, a shipbuilder in Kiel on Germany's Baltic coast. The relationship began with the Dolphin-class program and has continued through improved generations of the design since. That relationship carries a historical weight that goes beyond an ordinary arms deal. Germany's government has, at various points, subsidized part of the cost of these submarines for Israel, a policy widely reported to be tied to Germany's post-Holocaust relationship with the Israeli state. Whether or how much of this specific submarine's cost was subsidized isn't something we can confirm from the public reporting, and we won't guess. But the broader pattern of Germany as Israel's sole submarine builder for over 30 years is well established. Here's the part that rarely makes it into the coverage. Submarine programs, in almost every navy that operates them, run over budget and past schedule. That's not a claim about this specific vessel. It's a documented pattern across submarine construction worldwide, from Germany to the United States to Australia. Building a submarine means packing nuclear-grade engineering precision into a hull that has to survive crushing pressure, total darkness, and months of undetected operation without ever surfacing to fix a mistake. It's about as unforgiving as military manufacturing gets. Whatever this specific program's history involved, that class of problem is real, and it's worth knowing before dismissing a submarine's cost as just expensive. Before we get to strategy, it's worth explaining what actually makes a submarine like this one hard to build, since that's where a lot of the cost comes from. Most of the submarines in Israel's fleet, going back to the Dolphin class, use air-independent propulsion, or AIP. A conventional diesel-electric submarine has to run its diesel engines periodically to recharge its batteries, usually meaning it has to come close enough to the surface to draw in air, the moment it's most detectable. AIP systems let a submarine generate power without atmospheric air, so it can stay submerged, silent, and undetected for far longer, sometimes weeks, without surfacing. That extended underwater endurance is a big part of what naval analysts mean when they talk about a submarine fleet providing a credible, survivable presence. We're describing AIP here as general, well-documented submarine technology, not as a confirmed statement about this specific vessel's propulsion, which hasn't been detailed in the reporting on this delivery. Now, the second piece of context, what a submarine is actually for, and why analysts keep pointing to Israel's fleet specifically when the subject is Iran. Here's the plain version. A submarine's core military value isn't what it can destroy. It's that no one can be certain where it is. A jet can be tracked by radar. A missile battery sits at a fixed, known location. A submarine, once it submerges and goes quiet, can be almost anywhere across a vast stretch of ocean, and an adversary can't know for certain that all of an opponent's submarines have been accounted for or destroyed in a single strike. In deterrence theory, that uncertainty is the entire point. It's often called a survivable second strike capability, the guarantee that even if a country's other military assets were wiped out in a surprise attack, something would remain, hidden at sea, able to respond. Most people assume submarines matter mainly for sinking ships. For a country like Israel, positioned across the region from Iran, analysts describe the more relevant function differently, not sea combat, but survivability. Widely cited international defense analysis holds that Israel's submarine fleet is believed to be central to what's sometimes called the country's second strike posture, though Israel has never officially confirmed the specific armament its submarines carry. We have to be precise with our language here. Israel maintains a long-standing policy of deliberate ambiguity about its most sensitive military capabilities, and it neither confirms nor denies specific claims about what its naval forces can or can't carry. What we can say accurately is that analysts and several major news organizations have, for years, reported the assessment that Israel's submarine fleet plays this role. That's an analyst assessment, clearly attributed. It's not a confirmed fact, and we're not treating it as one. It also helps to place this inside a wider pattern that has nothing to do with Israel specifically. Several nations without large land-based nuclear arsenals, or without full confidence in the survivability of their land-based forces, have historically leaned on submarines as their most credible deterrent leg. The United Kingdom bases its entire nuclear deterrent on a small fleet of missile submarines on continuous patrol for exactly this reason. A submarine at sea is, by design, extremely hard to locate and eliminate in a first strike. France follows a similar model. North Korea has spent years trying, with mixed and closely watched results, to develop its own submarine-launched missile capability for the same reason. None of this tells us what Israel's submarines specifically carry. It just explains why, across very different navies, the submarine keeps showing up in deterrence discussions in the same role. Not a strike weapon meant to be used first, but the guaranteed response an adversary can never be fully sure has been eliminated. Iran's side of this is also part of the public record, in general terms. Over the past 2 decades, Iran has invested heavily and openly in its own ballistic missile and drone programs, and its government has repeatedly said these programs are central to its deterrence and defense strategy. Iran also operates a submarine force of its own, considerably smaller and less advanced than Israel's, built domestically and, according to defense analysts, oriented mostly toward the shallower waters of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz rather than long-range operations. That asymmetry. A smaller Iranian coastal force against a smaller but more advanced, longer-range Israeli fleet gets cited often by regional defense analysts as part of the broader naval balance between the two countries. Again, this is general regional context, not a specific claim about what this new delivery changes, which hasn't been detailed publicly. So here's the real question this delivery raises, and it's worth sitting with. If a country's most important deterrent capability rests on ambiguity, on the world not knowing exactly what a submarine carries or where it is, then what does adding one more boat at a reported cost of $634 million actually change? Is this a genuine leap in capability, or is it, at least partly, a signal? A visible, reportable event, precisely because most of what the fleet does happens where no camera can follow it? That question doesn't have a clean, confirmed answer. And we should be honest about that instead of pretending otherwise. Here's the disagreement worth putting directly to you, because serious defense analysts split on it. Some argue submarine deterrence, especially for a country the size of Israel, gets overstated in public discussion. That its real value is more about intelligence gathering and a narrower set of covert missions than any nuclear-adjacent second strike doctrine that gets discussed so much online. Others argue the opposite, that in a region where Iran has invested heavily in its own missile and drone programs, the mere existence of an unlocatable, survivable platform is exactly what's kept the worst-case scenarios from playing out. We're not going to tell you which view is right, because the public record honestly doesn't settle it. What we can tell you is that both camps exist among serious defense analysts, and this delivery is the kind of event that reignites that debate every time it happens. What do you think? If you were advising a government on whether visible, expensive submarine deliveries like this won't actually strengthen deterrence, or whether they're mostly symbolic next to the classified reality underneath, which side would you land on? Now let's get precise about where things stand today, and where the line between confirmed and unconfirmed actually falls. Confirmed, based on the reporting on this delivery. Israel has received a new submarine. It was built in Germany. Its reported cost is $634 million. Defense reporting frames the delivery as a significant boost to Israel's deterrence posture with respect to Iran. It adds to an existing fleet that's been described in defense reporting for years as a strategic deterrent tool for the region. Not confirmed, and not something this video will pretend to know. The submarine's specific class designation beyond what's generally known about Israel's ongoing German-built submarine program, its precise armament or payload, whether or how much its cost was subsidized by the German government, the exact date construction began, and any operational details about where or how it'll be deployed. If you see any of those specifics claimed elsewhere, check them against an official Israeli Navy statement, a German government or shipbuilder statement, or a named, reputable defense outlet-sourced reporting, rather than assuming. Here's one detail from the broader pattern that stuck with us while researching this. Israel's government almost never comments substantively on its submarine fleet, even when a new vessel is delivered. Coverage of these deliveries is built, again and again, largely from shipbuilder statements, unofficial sourcing, and analyst commentary rather than the Israeli government laying out the capability in detail. That silence isn't an oversight. By most informed accounts, it's a deliberate feature of how Israel manages this category of military capability, and it's worth remembering the next time a headline about a new submarine states its purpose with more confidence than any government actually has. So, to pull this together, what's genuinely new here is a delivery. One more German-built submarine added to a fleet that's quietly underpinned Israel's deterrence calculus toward Iran for decades at a reported cost of $634 million. What's not new is the pattern underneath it. 30 years of a defense relationship with Germany, a doctrine of deliberate ambiguity, and a running debate among analysts over how much of this capability is genuine strategic weight and how much is the visible tip of something the public will likely never see confirmed. If you've followed Israel's submarine program over the years, or you know this shipbuilding relationship with Germany better than most people do, tell us what stood out to you about this latest delivery, because there's more nuance in this story than any one video can cover. For anyone who wants to check any part of what we covered rather than take our word for it, we've listed several places to start in the description, including the kind of sources serious defense reporting on this subject actually draws from. That's where the real detail lives, well beyond what any single explainer, including this one, can responsibly claim to know.